you're fine.
Welcome to the First BU Today live chat featuring nutrition professor Joan Salge-Blake. We're excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited to be here.
Great. So we had a question come in yesterday about farmers markets.
Right.
It's summer. People want to shop outside, but the prices can be a little steep.
Right.
You know, what can you suggest are the best things in terms of, produce of farmers markets?
Right. Great question, because farmers markets right now, 'tis the season, so it's really, really a wonderful way to buy local fresh food that tastes great because it's locally grown and it's in season. However, it may not always be the cheapest produce, believe it or not, because sometimes at supermarkets what they'll do is that they will put produce on sale at a very, very low price. It's called a loss leader, where they really want you to come into the supermarket to buy the produce but other things. So before you head out to the farmer's market, check your local supermarket circular and see what produce is on sale. So if the broccoli's on sale or tomatoes are on sale, don't buy that in the farmer's market. Pick that up in the supermarket and then buy other produce at the farmer's market.
That's great. And we had another question about cookouts and what to serve your guests. People have different dietary restrictions, and a lot of people are doing the vegetarian thing these days. And most people think hot dogs and hamburgers. So what kind of suggestions can you make for vegetarian, cuisine for a cookout, other than, grilled corn?
Right. Grilled corn is good. But now that you just bought all that produce from the farmer's market, now you're ready to cook it up. So this is the time where you can grill vegetables. So do all of the summer vegetables, the summer squash, the Vidalia onions, even tomatoes and broccoli. Grill all those up. And then on the inside of the house, boil up a pound of penne pasta, open up a can of black beans, and then put all those together, a little bit of olive oil, a little of the fresh bagel you got at that farmer's market, and stir that right up, and you will have a pasta dish that is unbelievably delicious. A large amount of it, so much that you'll probably have lunch the next day, so you're going to get two for the price of one.
And, that's great. While you're at home, it's always easier to, control where you're eating. But questions come up all the time about road trips and weekend trips and, how to maintain your weight while you're taking a long weekend and, a road trip to the Cape that ends up being 5 hours instead of 2, like it should be. So, what can you, suggest for people who want to, stay healthy during those times?
That's a really, really popular question. A lot of people have this problem because on summertime they travel. And a lot of them for this summer, because of prices, they're going to travel locally, but it can be 2 to 5 hours. So what you just need to do with that is plan ahead and have a cooler that is basically your vacation cooler. Put an ice pack in it, and then what you want to put in it are snacks that are going to stay with you. So you're looking for snacks that have some protein, have some fiber, and a lot of water. So something that might be easily to travel would be something like string cheese. You can get the small bags of light popcorn, and if you're going to have a lot of vacations, buy a lot of them and keep them housed in your house. And then, any kind of a fresh fruit which is easy to eat in the car, which would be grapes. Then what you do is fill your water bottle before you leave, big water bottle, halfway with cold water and the other half with ice, so that this way, as your long travel takes you, and if the 2-hour ride ends up being 5 hours, the ice cubes will melt, and then you continually have cold water to keep you out of the rest stops, but into some good healthy nutrition and snacks on the road.
And what happens at the rest stops? I mean, what do you suggest? I mean, really, when it comes down to it, you're out of food, you're on your way back to the city or wherever you live, and you have to stop, and you're starving.
Right.
What do you do in that situation?
Great question. How many of us have not had that happen to us before? Absolutely. So you're pretty much have to look at what's in the vending machine. If there are any nuts in the vending machine, go for it. Small thing of peanuts or almonds, because again, they have that protein that will fill you up, the fiber, very, very filling, and they can hold you over until you get home and can find something that you really want to eat.
And, kind of in between the rides, while you're on vacation, let's say you're at a wedding or you're at a graduation party and you've taken a long trip to get there, what do you do when you're at the party? How do you, maintain control of your diet while, staying within, the food menu that's offered to you.
Right. You know, it's funny because so many people say the holidays, December, are hard to manage their weight. But really, June can be a challenging month with weddings and graduations. So a lot of people have these parties one right after another. I'll tell you a tip. Whenever you get to these parties, look to see where the vegetables are. Research will tell us that if you eat a big salad prior to the meal, that you can reduce the calories at that meal by about 10%. That's pretty dramatic. So look for those vegetables, whether they're grilled, whether they're from a salad, even a fruit salad. Fill up on those first, and then that will help pace you for the main meal.
And, what about when you're eating out? Everybody, you're on vacation, you saved up money, and you take those special meals to celebrate or, to just kind of get away while you're on vacation. What should people focus on eating while they're, knowing that they're going to consume a lot of calories at the restaurant?
Right. Because so many people want to go on vacation, but they don't want to, come back with 10 extra pounds in their luggage or on their waist. So one of the best things that you can do is, this is a tip that a lot of people have used, and it really has worked perfectly. Forget about eating your big dinner at dinner. Eat your big meal at lunch for many, many reasons. First of all, at lunchtime, if you have your big meal, it's going to be cheaper because the lunch menu is less expensive than the dinner menu. There won't be any lines because everybody's waiting for dinner to have that. The portions will be smaller. So that's good for you because sometimes when we get to restaurants, dinner portions are too large and we have a hard time not eating at all. So and it tends to also be cheaper. So for many, many reasons, having your big meal on vacation midday rather than later on in the day is going to be good for you on all fronts.
And what about at the beach? I mean, I know I used to, as a child, always eat Twizzlers on the beach, and obviously I can't do that anymore. But, people like to have the junk food. You like to have something that's easy to carry, that's not going to necessarily melt. What do you suggest is a good snack for the beach?
The beach is something we're all going to be going to. And again, here you are, you're pretty much only have foods that are available for you that are beach type of food. So it's good to bring something. If it's the beach, that means it's summer. That's when you should really be going for that summer produce. Right around July, peaches are going to come in season, and so are plums. They're juicy, they're sweet. You're not going to see them all year round. Load them up, put them in the beach bag with you. They don't need to be refrigerated. Great snack, high in fiber, juicy, sweet. You can't go wrong.
So we're sticking to the produce.
We love that produce.
Okay. That's great. And what about frozen treats?
Right. Frozen treats. I scream, you scream, we're all screaming for ice cream during the summertime, and we all want it. So really, and who doesn't like ice cream? But what you have to watch with ice cream is the portions. So if you are the type where you get a half a gallon of ice cream and you're only able to get about 4 servings from it, you're over dishing. So for you, what you may want to do is buy your treats individual portions, things on a pop and a little bit of a cup. So this way when you pull it out, that's what a portion is. Another thing you can do that's really delicious, you can take yogurt, a light creamy type of yogurt, put it in a blender with frozen berries and whip this up. It is so good. It becomes cold and like a sorbet kind of texture. But really all you're getting is yogurt and fruit. It is out of this world. It's really, really
Similar
good.
to a smoothie?
Similar to a smoothie,
Okay.
but there isn't anything added to it other than the yogurt and the fruit. It's fabulous. You have to try it.
That sounds great. And what about on those rainy weekends? You're stuck in your apartment, you want to be outside cooking out, but you end up baking.
Right.
What is your suggestion for summer baking? How much should you make? How much should you eat? What should you make? Run it down for us because it's, to me, I would have chocolate chip cookies every day if I could.
Right.
So.
If you're a baker, and I often have a lot of people that bake more in the summer because they are off from a full-time job, so they have all this time in their hands. They love to bake. And they say, gee, I love to bake, but then I have the leftovers, which means that where this story is going. So what I tell them to do is if you want to bake, and it's great and very relaxing, freeze the extras. And what you may want to do is find someone that may need it. Oftentimes in your town, they may have a church, a synagogue, some kind of a system where they send a meal to a shelter once a month. And what you can do is donate. They also often need desserts. Donate that and send it on. Enjoy the baking. Just be careful of where you're storing it.
And any suggestions for the types of foods we should bake?
Oh, but anything that you can bake that's going to be more of whole grains. And if you can add some fruit to it, something like a cobbler or a crisp, that's wonderful because you're also going to get some fruit. You use whole grain flour and oatmeal to get some fiber in there. It's a hearty and satisfying sweet.
Can we, cut back on any of the sugar? Is there any way you can look at a recipe when you're baking in the summer and say, I know I can maybe cut the sugar in half or substitute? I mean, what do you think about those options?
You could always substitute a recipe. A recipe is just someone's idea of how it should end up, but you can always make an adjustment. What you want to do is adjust gradually, though. You oftentimes can't cut big amounts. If it says a cup of sugar, you can't go down to a quarter without it possibly having an effect on what's going. So slowly bring it down and look for natural sweetness. Add more fruit to the recipe. Add more fruit to the cobbler or the crisp. That'll give it a sweetness so you don't have to add so much sugar.
And we're, on campus here at Boston University. We've had a few questions come in over the web about, college student eating. It always comes up, and, they're off for the summers. I know we have Sargent Choice here at BU, which we're lucky to have. But, I mean, what should students really be thinking about as they're home? I'm sure a lot of them are working and maybe taking extra classes. What kind of general advice can you give specifically to college students for summer eating?
Right. They ought to remember of what you did here that worked. And what was beautiful here when you were on campus, you had 3 meals, actually all day long, and you had this fabulous Sargent Choice program which gave you all these healthy meals just by walking in there with a wide variety. So remember what worked in that. And what worked were these meals from Sargent Choice. They were full of vegetables, they were full of whole grains, they had the good healthy oils to it. So think about that when you are in an employment situation or you're at home. Don't skip meals, keep your meals regimented, and also look for those fruits, those vegetables, those whole grains, just like you did on campus.
And what about, the students that are on a budget? Can you make any kind of specific examples about snacks that will be budget friendly for them in the summer?
Right. Again, we're going to go, I feel like I'm a broken record. We're going back to this farmer's market, but you are never going to get fruit as cheap and as delicious as it in the summer. So that's really, it is very budget friendly. So take advantage of this fruit being in season and therefore cost effective and very easy on the budget, and eat it. It is delicious.
Okay, whether you're a student or you have a family or you're retired or we all end up going to these baseball games, right? Whether it's Fenway Park or a local stadium. I mean, what kind of suggestions can you make for us while we're watching the ball game? Everybody wants a Fenway Frank,
right,
but we all know we shouldn't do it.
Right.
So,
well, everybody has room in their diet for a Fenway Frank.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness for that too. But there are now these stadiums are now having more of an upscale type of a menu for people that maybe want a Fenway Frank, but maybe something else a little bit healthy to go along with it. For example, at Fenway Park, you can log on to their website and look at concessions, and it'll have a drop-down box, and it'll tell you what's available, and they have healthy options. I was able to get a fruit cup at Fenway.
You were.
Who knew? So here you go.
I have no excuse.
You have no excuse. So they have turkey sandwiches. They have other healthy options. And Fenway is just one stadium, and this is happening across the nation. Down in the Bronx for Yankee Stadium, they are really, really going upscale. They have salads, they have fresh food, they have stir fries. In fact, in Yankee Stadium, when the guy or the gal comes and sells you the peanuts or the popcorn or the cotton candy, whatever, they have a button on it. It'll say popcorn. It'll have the calories underneath it per portion. So this way, you actually know before you get it at the game how much you're going to be snacking on.
That brings up a good point. I mean, I know that other states are, and even cities here in Massachusetts are starting to, post calorie counts. I mean, what's your take on that?
I think it's great. Any information that you have is good information. And this way knowing before you order it how many calories, how much saturated fat may be in there. So it's important that the information be available to you and then make your decision appropriately. Or you may realize that it's a very large portion, so before eating it, say, gee, I'm only going to eat half of it, and then take the other half home and get another meal out of it. So I think the information is terrific.
And what are some of those foods that may not appear to be, calorie heavy, but are? What are some of those kind of primary offenders in that case?
Right. People often think if it's liquid, it doesn't count. But liquid calories count. So oftentimes especially in this hot weather, your iced teas, your iced coffees, if they have cream and a lot of sugar added to it, even your hot coffees, if they're flavored, can have an enormous amount of calories, more than you think. So look at that. Make sure, just because you're not chewing it, that doesn't mean it doesn't have calories. So look at those liquid beverages and make sure during these hot weather to stay hydrated. Water is fabulous, and don't be careful about over consuming calories from lemonades, iced teas, and sodas.
And while we're speaking about calories, how many, this might be kind of an obscure question, but how many extra calories does somebody have to consume to really make it affect their weight? What's kind of the wiggle room that people have when they're maintaining their weight in the summer or any other time?
Right. Well, the beauty about the weight is it's averaged over about a week. So if you go to Fenway, you go to a ball game on Sunday and overeat, then what you want to do on Monday is ratchet it down a little bit to help compensate for what happened on the weekend or the day before. So that's the beauty of it, that it's going to be something that's going to be averaged over the week. So adjust accordingly based upon what the day before looked like to you.
So if you have a bad day, you shouldn't make it a bad week, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. If you have a day, I hate to say bad, but you have a day where you may have had more. Maybe you went to a party, or that graduation party that we just talked about. That's great. Just adjust up for it for the day after, and it'll all even out.
And it's about a week is what we're working on.
I usually try to have it average it over the week. This way that sometimes, you're because of the schedule, you might have a busy Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday where you have outings. Then the rest of the week, let's go a little slimmer, so this way that it averages out.
And that, when we're talking about liquids and calories, how does it work with alcohol?
Right.
Are there hidden, especially in the summer, ballparks, the beers that people are drinking?
Right.
How can we start to think about alcohol in addition to other liquids as being kind of part of our diet?
Right. That's a really, really good question, because oftentimes now with the summer comes a lot of social activities, a lot of barbecues, the graduations that we talked about. So you may have been in an environment where alcohol is going to be around you more than it would have been, say, in the winter. So you have to be careful about that, because yes, it's going to add calories. You have the calories from the alcohol itself, and then if it's mixed with anything, say if you have a rum and Coke, that you got calories from two sources there. So you got to be careful about that and the calories that comes from it. You also have to be very careful about the size of your cup. Some of these party cups, if you're outside in a barbecue, are 16, 20 ounces. So if you're filling these up to the rim, or even 2/3 of the rim, you're having a fair amount of alcohol, probably more than obviously 12 ounces of beer, and definitely more than about 5 ounces of wine. So you have to be very careful. You may consider it a drink, but it actually may be 2 or more. In fact, do you know a bottle of wine? How many glasses of wine are you supposed to get from a bottle of wine?
Oh, geez. I think they usually say at restaurants maybe 2.5.
Yeah, that's a good restaurant. You're supposed to get 5-ounce glasses of wine from a bottle.
Gosh.
See, and this is what happens. So you're just pouring away. You have these big wine glasses, not realizing that is 5 servings of wine. So you remember that.
So serving size is important.
Serving
when it comes
size,
to this.
absolutely.
So when we're
important.
drinking out of those big margarita glasses, is it going to be a problem?
No, I would find small margarita
Small
glasses.
margarita glasses, maybe more like a martini size.
Yeah, like little.
So basically, it's it's in addition to the alcohol, you're looking at what's added to it.
Right.
So what kind of drinks can people think about drinking this summer that maybe would keep things simple in terms of calorie counting?
Right. One of the best things you can do, because some people say, I just want my favorite beer, or I just want my favorite wine, and they don't want to dilute it, they don't want a spritzer, they want their favorite wine. So what you do that is dilute the way it goes in. So in other words, have a glass of wine, but make sure the next beverage at the party is a large glass of water, sparkling water with a lime. Space it out, especially if it's going to be a long party. Then the second glass of wine is really like your third or fourth beverage. So hopefully after 2, it's time to go home.
So it's really about timing then.
Timing,
And-
absolutely, and spacing.
In spacing, so are you starting to feel full in that case?
Right, and what is it? What could happen is if you start just drinking is a long party and you have 1, 2, 3 glasses of beverages and they're all wine, that's a lot of calories and a lot of alcohol. So space each drink every other with a non-caloric beverage, diet soda or sparkling water, anything that's available. That's non-alcoholic.
And what do you find in the summer in terms of, with your clients and what they're eating? What do you think would be the biggest problem or the biggest obstacle to overcome?
It's funny. I grew up in New Jersey, and when I first came up here many, many years ago, everybody loved ice cream. It was like everybody up here likes ice cream. So this has got to be the biggest thing that I have to deal with my clients. They love ice cream in New England. So what we have to work on is getting the portions smaller, getting it lower fat if you can. And I'm going to tell you a tip. Get it in a cone. Get 1 scoop in a cone. It'll last longer, right? It's not, if you only get 1 scoop, they're not going to pile it high. If they get it in a dish, you'll probably get more. Get it on a cone. The cone's about 20 calories. You deserve it.
20 calories for a cone?
A cake cone.
Okay. And, in terms of flavors, I know you said low fat. Sometimes they say they add sugar with those. I mean, how can people gauge that when they're either shopping in the supermarket or they're at the ice cream parlor?
Right. Oftentimes when they take out the fat from a creamy frozen dessert, they are going to add more sugar. So what it is we're going to be focused on try to watch the saturated fat because we know that's hard unhealthy, and try to watch the calories. And the best way to do that is really to watch your portion control. A half a gallon of ice cream is supposed to give you 16 half-cup servings. And I don't know anybody that's ever gotten 16 half-cup servings from a half a gallon of ice cream. So what you may want to do is get a small amount, like a pint, and then it has 4 servings in the container, and it's easier for you to gauge that rather than a larger container.
And when we're looking at the saturated fat content, how much is kind of reasonable? I mean, if this is a treat that you're having, it's your favorite kind of ice cream or your dessert, what can you say to your clients is a reasonable amount of saturated fat?
That's an excellent question because here we go again with that balancing. So if you say, gee, this ice cream is my favorite and I really just want to have a half a cup but it's very high in fat and saturated fat and calories, then that's the dinner. You have maybe fish, a lot of vegetables, some little brown rice. So balance the entire meal. So you don't want to have a high-fat, high-calorie meal followed by a high-fat, high-calorie dessert. Keep the dessert small, the meal lean, and then overall we're going to be looking good.
And just in terms of other issues that come up in the summer, I know that a lot, like you said before, a lot of produce comes into being, the best plums of the year, the best strawberries, and dietary sugar can be a problem for people from what I hear. How does that weigh in? How should you balance, as you say, the extra fruit that you're eating in the summer?
That is an excellent question, a question I get so often, and they say, oh, well, what about the sugar in fruit? Listen, Mother Nature will never steer you wrong, so don't ever worry about the sugar that comes from fruit. It's a natural sugar. It makes the fruit palatable, and fruit is so high in vitamins and phytochemicals that can fight so many diseases. What you have to watch is for the foods and the beverages that have added sugar. That's where the problem is. So look at where those sweetened beverages, things in the bakery aisle as such, baked goods we had just talked about before. Don't worry about Mother Nature's natural sugar. It's terrific.
And if you're comparing different types of fruits, I mean, I know that I've heard you say before that you should eat what you like if it's healthy. You should continue. But I mean, could you maybe rank some of the seasonal fruit that'll be peaking soon and kind of give some suggestions about where people should aim?
Right. That's a good question because, peak is the key here, because if you're buying produce in its peak, it's going to be delicious and it's going to be just so flavorful, especially if you're buying it locally. So what you want to do is all the produce is wonderful, all of it. You really can't go wrong. But buy the ones that are in season, and I'm going to give you a tip. You can get on, I know here in Massachusetts, get on mass.gov, and I'm sure you can do this in many other states. mass.gov, and they will link you to a page that will tell you produce that's in season. So by the produce item, it will tell you, for example, peaches. Peaches in Massachusetts, their peak season will be July and August. So knowing that in advance, we know that, so wait until July or August to buy the peaches, because then we know they're at their peak, they're going to be naturally sweet, they're going to be absolutely delicious, and they're going to be priced right. So you really can go to your state website and look at locally grown in your state and what's in season, and buy in season for best taste and best price.
And off the top of your head, what are some, other than the peaches, what do you see forecasting for the summer to be some of the best?
Well, if we keep the sun the way it's going here, we have got a very, very good summer. Where our tomatoes, hopefully, we know those at end of July and August are going to be peak. Watermelon, of course, is all the peppers, the vegetables. We keep the sun out, I think we're going to have a really good summer coming ahead of us.
Great. And, when you're at the farmer's market and you're at the supermarket and you're testing your produce, what should you look for? I mean, what are you, obviously you can tell when something's rotten, but, I always have trouble with bananas because they're either green or they're brown.
Right.
It's hard. It's like, when is that peak day? How do you gauge when to buy things?
That's a good question about the bananas, because what happens if you buy a whole bunch that are yellow, by the time you get to the last banana in your kitchen, we all know it's no longer yellow. Mm-hmm. It's rather gets a little mushy. So what you may want to do, instead of getting a whole bunch of one color of banana, get a small bunch of red and yellow, and a small bunch of green. So this way you eat the yellow first, and by the time you finish the yellow, you get to the green. The green in your kitchen will now be yellow. So what you want to do is buy some fruit that's ready to eat, and buy some fruit a little bit hard that could age in your kitchen, and ripen, I should say, in your kitchen. This way you have peak fruit throughout the whole week.
And what's going to be happening at your house this summer? I mean, we've talked about ice cream and fruit and cookout food. I mean, what do you have on your, menus to cook with and for your family this summer?
Right. What I have on my menus is plenty of fish. We know that fish is heart healthy. Americans should be having at least 2 fish meals a week. And grilling fish is terrific, is easy cleanup. So fish is on my menu at home, my family, or when we're entertaining, and all those grilled vegetables that people love. And when you do those grilled vegetables, make extra, because they're great at dinner and they're fabulous the next day for lunch. And plenty of brown rice and good weather, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. Eating a lot of meals al fresco, I hope.
I hope so too.
That's the plan anyways. Something else that I think at my house we'll definitely be having is a lot of outdoor breakfasts. It's definitely breakfast is my my mother's whatever you call it. That's her specialty, in other words. How are eggs? I mean, how many eggs should we be having?
Right.
She likes to make scrambled eggs, and I try to hold her off from putting too much cheese in.
Right.
She'll probably kill me for saying this.
No, she won't. But what you want to do is talk about the cheese. The eggs. Eggs are a wonderful economical source, high in protein as such. So you can have eggs. We want to keep our dietary cholesterol under 300 milligrams a day, so eggs can clearly work in there. But what you want with that omelet is to go easy on the cheese, make it a low-fat cheese, and fill it up with a lot of vegetables. If you do that, you're not going to have to eat a lot of eggs, because you're going to be eating a lot of vegetables. The vegetables are good for you because they're full of fiber and water, and they fill you up before they fill you out, so they're very waste-friendly for you.
And any other breakfast suggestions that I can add to the menu?
Add all those berries for the summer. Get some whole grain cereals. But breakfast is a fabulous morning meal. It's great in nutrition. Everybody should make sure they have it.
And what are your kind of last, we're running out of time here, but what are your last kind of 3 or 4 tips, maybe even 5, as many as you want to give to people that are watching, just to kind of stay healthy this summer?
Sure. I think one of the best things you can do is try to start eating more locally, because local will mean that it's at its peak freshness, peak flavor, and peak value, because we know from an economic standpoint it's likely to be very less expensive than it is. So go locally. Try to remember to get more fruits and vegetables on your plate. At least half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables. And so then work on getting some more whole grains and some more fish in your diet. And I'll tell you, you'll have a happy and a healthy summer ahead of you.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.